Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another day of the CWWA 30th anniversary celebration. So we are delighted to be here. My name is Valerie Jenkinson, and I am the president of World Water and Wastewater Solutions. And more importantly, this morning, I am the chair of Operators Without Borders. And we have 8 of us on the line this morning as panelists to talk about the work that Operators Without Borders has been doing in the Caribbean. I will be introducing very briefly each of our presenters. I'm not going to go into all of their details because that would take, with all the incredible credentials that they have, probably an hour and a half presentation. So we're going to go through a number of areas this morning. We're going to look at training, we're going to look at disasters, we're going to look at standard operating procedures, and each of the panelists is going to be talking about their role in Operators Without Borders and what we've been doing. We also have with us Mrs. James from DOWASCO, who's going to be talking about her experiences both with standard operating procedures, lab techniques, and disasters. And we have Ignatius, Jean, and Ton, and Nicole from the Caribbean, who are joining to give their perspective on some of the things that we have done and are doing with them. So my first speaker this morning, and I'm going to go straight into the session, is Ton Vlugman. And I think that almost everybody in the Caribbean knows Ton. He's probably one of the best known people. Ton, my eyesight's not very good, and it looked like you'd been with PAHO, it said on your email, from 1897. But I think that was 1997 when I looked at it more closely. Because I'm older than you are, so I think it was 1897. So Ton recently retired from PAHO, and he is still working with PAHO and SEDIMA in disasters. He's presently in Guyana, and he was instrumental in many of the disasters that were working around the Caribbean and for health-related issues. He is still on the PAHO's Emergency Rapid Assessments and Response Team. He is also on the Advisory Committee of Operators Without Borders, and he's going to talk to you this morning about why we are doing one of the initiatives we're doing. So, Ton, over to you. You're on mute.
We have been collaborating with the Operators Without Borders for quite a while now, following several experiences in my
you're coming in and out right now. I don't know if the connection's bad, but if you can put your video on as well, if that's able.
Past, but not taken up. And so, for example,
so Tom, we can neither see you nor hear you at this point in time. So perhaps you can...
I'm sorry, but the Wi-Fi connection in my office here is apparently very poor, so I keep kicking out. And I assume that you hear, but to make a long story short, and then preparation for
Ton, we are not hearing you, I'm afraid. So I'm going to see whether you are able to get your
agencies
microphone. We're not hearing you, Ton. So
interactive sessions.
Ton, I'm going to leave you because we're not hearing really anything that you're saying. I don't know if you can hear me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our second speaker, who is our colleague, who again, I don't think anybody will not know, which is Ignatius.
But we're sure that the top of the basin is 26, right?
If the organizers can mute other people who are coming in, please. And Ignatius Jean is the Executive Director of CAWASA, and he has been instrumental in a lot of the work that Operators Without Borders has been doing in the Caribbean. So Ignatius, can you talk about all the things that we've been doing and how utilities can access some of these things? Over to you, Ignatius.
Yes, certainly, Valerie. Good morning, everyone. And again, happy 30th anniversary to the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association. And welcome, colleagues. Perhaps Tom should put a direct wire link, because sometimes the Wi-Fi fluctuates tremendously. So maybe if he has a direct wire connection, that might help. Yes, about CAWASA's involvement with Operators Without Borders, we actually have had a formal memorandum of understanding between our organizations. And over the past year, particularly because of the COVID pandemic, it has forced us into offering many more services online because of the restrictions, travel restrictions, and we aren't able to visit islands to do training. So one of the first things that Operators Without Borders organized for us was the Incident Command System, the ICS 100 course. And that involved workshops conducted by internationally certified FEMA ICS Canada instructor, Mr. Greg Solecki, who is one of Canada's leading disaster experts. With the Operators Without Borders and in collaboration with CAWASA, we offered a free half-day training session on Incident Command System. And certificates of completion were awarded to all successful participants. And it also provides the prerequisite training for future ICS courses. And of course, that the target audience included the middle managers, supervisors, senior operators of water utilities, power utilities, emergency organizations of the various countries, the fire services, and first responders. So successful was the course in that it was, I think we were oversubscribed because the maximum on the call was 100. So we actually had more than 100 people from various utilities applying to participate. So subsequently in September of that year of 2020, we had to host a second session. And that too was oversubscribed and well delivered by Mr. Solecki. Of course, that would have put us in a better position in understanding how to manage during disaster events. And then we had, in 2021, again, to the rescue was the Operators Without Borders with water distribution tutorials, because we've been having challenges finding tutors for preparing our operators for taking the Association of Boards of Certification, that's the ABC exams, of which CAWASA is the authorized agent in the Caribbean for offering these exams. So for water distribution levels 1 and 2, we had Mr. Mike Ipen of Operators Without Borders being up, again, that was in the middle of winter, being up at about 4 a.m. so that he could deliver these tutorials every week from 5 a.m. So that was very wonderful of them to do that. And then following, we had Mr. Mike Furlow, who did water treatment levels 1 and 2. And then we had, from May to August, we had Mr. Mike Gosselin, who did wastewater treatment levels 1 and 2. Of course, we have seen a tremendous improvement in the pass rate. And in fact, I think that was the highest number of students we had taken the exams. I think at any one time, we had over some 46 students from various utilities, CAWASA member utilities, and students out of Trinidad. And in June and September, we continued the collaboration with Operators Without Borders to present workshops on standard operating procedures. The first workshop coincided with the commencement of the hurricane season and focused on standard operating procedures for disaster and emergency management. The objective of the workshop was to strengthen the capacities of our utilities through well-planned procedures and trained personnel to minimize the effects and improve our responses to disasters and emergencies. Of course, we well know that in our region, there are few utilities who have totally documented all the procedures. So you will find that a lot of senior operators work with these procedures in their heads, and God forbid if we should lose them for any reason, that those procedures, we have to go back to find them in various ways, or even sometimes having to recall some of these people back to work where they can be recalled. But if it is that this person has transitioned, then we lose all of that institutional memory. So the workshop sought to review previous best practices for orderly and efficient transition to emergency operations, including protocols on emergency evacuation, disaster response, emergency delegation of authority, assignment of responsibilities, continuity of operations, prevention and preparedness, personnel safety, sourcing external materials and technical assistance. The session brought together operation managers, senior operators, supervisors from most of the CAWASA member utilities and subject matter experts, mainly volunteers from the Operators Without Borders. And of course, the criteria was of trying to get knowledge of the utilities infrastructure and the vulnerabilities that disasters pose to infrastructure. The participants listed their vulnerabilities, then formed breakout groups to examine hurricanes, floods, droughts, and volcanic eruption. That was in our first workshop. And in our second workshop, we actually went down into working on the specifics. For example, in one of the working groups looked at storage. How would the SOPs for actual storage tanks? Some others would look at various other aspects of the operations. And we had those spreadsheets, and it's still a work in progress. But I dare say these are some of the good things that we have been doing with Operators Without Borders. Needless to say, the actual presence in the post-disaster events, such as we had in Dominica and in the Bahamas following Hurricane Dorian and Hurricane Maria, respectively. So I think it is good that we are able, through these networks, to be able to source expertise outside of our region and to be able to close the gaps that we have, particularly with standard operating procedures and building capacity, helping us to build capacity in spite of not being able to meet physically, but using the virtual platforms to do so. So I would like to commend the Operators Without Borders and say that this is something, in fact, we need to document some of the work that we have done.
Thank you very much, Ignatius. You've been an absolutely wonderful partner. Now that we have more people on the line, I'll just give a little overview because there is...
I should, just one more thing, Valerie. I failed to mention that every Wednesday at CAWASA we run what we call our Wednesday webinars. It's called, some of the operators refer to it as the CAWASA Wednesday webinars. And if for any reason I fail to have a presenter, Valerie always finds some good backup and very resourceful presenters for us for those webinars. And all of that is, again, we are building this body of knowledge, which you will find on the internet, which you will find on YouTube and on our Facebook pages and CAWASA's website.
Terrific. Yes. So we have one today. And Nick St. George is speaking today on wastewater in Barbados. So yeah, that'll be an interesting webinar today. So thank you, and we'll come back with questions afterwards. If you do have questions, everybody who's in the audience, please put them in the chat and I will address them as we go through, or at the end, to the particular panelist or all of the panelists that you want to address the question to. So one of the things that Tom would have said had we've been able to hear him is the reason why we started the disaster SOPs that Ignatius is talking about, because this really was Tom's idea in the first place, and he's been trying to do something for a long time to get these SOPs running, and it's never quite come to fruition. And when he first approached me, being on our advisory board, he said that 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, he was in a disaster area following a hurricane, and the water, the huge water storage tank that supplied water to most of the area, had been blown away in the hurricane. The reason for that, it has not been filled with water. So it was not stable. The hurricane came, everything left, no water. So they started talking about the things that you need to do. You need to put all the water in there. And he said, fast forward 20 years to another hurricane, and we won't say which island, but he said, again, the storage tank blew away. Now this time they had filled up the water, but nobody had closed the valve. And so Tom said, what we need is a blueprint, some SOPs that says, do this, 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 and this before the disaster comes, and then we should be in much better stead to recover much more quickly. So that's where all of this impetus came from. So thank you, Tom, for spurring us, and also for all the work you're doing on our advisory committee. I'm now going to ask Nicole Austin to speak, because that fits a lot with what Ignatius was talking about on certification of operators and the training that we are doing. Because one of our two mandates at Operators Without Borders is capacity building. Our first mandate is helping utilities recover when there is a disaster. So we are a Canadian registered charity, we're an NGO, but we have a very different mandate from almost all of the other NGOs. They come in, they bring their expertise to give water, in bottled water or chlorine tablets, so that they can provide some emergency water. We work strictly with utilities. So we come in when we have some equipment and when we're invited to come in and help you rebuild. And we send certified operators from Canada and the US who are all volunteers, and they come in and work alongside those crews. And Marcel's going to talk a little bit about that later. So that's our first mandate. The second mandate that we have, because we had 60 or 70 people, all very, very qualified, who signed up. And we know that there is a lack of training in the Caribbean for water and wastewater operators. So we said, let's not waste the expertise that we have with our volunteers, so let's give capacity building. So as Ignatius said, one of the things we've been doing is certifying operators. The Canadians and the Americans are the same system, the Associated Boards of Certification, to certify water and wastewater operators. So we've been running these courses, and there'll be many more that we're running to certify more operators. But Nicole Austin, who is a water quality technologist with Barbados Water Authority, is now certified in all 4 disciplines: water treatment, wastewater treatment, water distribution, wastewater collection. So congratulations on that, Nicole, and I'm going to take it over to you to talk about your experience.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yes, when the first email came out with CAWASA regarding getting certified and that they're going to have these tutors available for us, I was very excited, because I would have joined Barbados Water Authority in 2007. And I think my first CWWA conference in 2008, I'm not sure the year, yeah. But my first conference, I think we had a water operator from St. Lucia. He was talking about his experience, and I was very excited to start the journey. And I think I would have read a few books, and well, don't let me say read a few books. I started to look at a book, and that didn't work out for me. And I never got the courage to actually, sign up to do the exam. But this year, when the exam tutorials came out and the dedication and the commitment of these tutors, knowing that it was like 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning in Canada, or freezing cold as well, that to know that they will be there. When I signed on, they were there. Ignatius was there, Valerie would pop in, but these tutors were definitely there, and they gave time, and they made sure that if you were not au fait with what was going on because of the technologies that you had within your own country, they explained it. They went and they brought back videos, they sent information so that you would be ready for the exam, and not just the exam, but also be ready to know what the water utilities are doing within Canada, within America, and even sometimes within the region. So that gave the confidence that when the exam date came, as nervous as you were, because it's an exam, I went in and was very happy with the results. As Valerie said, I started with water treatment and water distribution, and then most recently I did the wastewater aspect of wastewater collection and wastewater treatment. And the triple team of all three mics, great dedication from OWB, great, like so much knowledge that they just wanted to share. And they asked you questions. They wanted to know what you were doing within your country so that they can give you the, they could teach you how you could be relatable. So I once again, I thank CAWASA, I thank Valerie, I thank the three mics for being there throughout that time. And that definitely gave me that boost, that confidence boost to tackle this exam and to do them proud.
So Nicole, what does it mean to you to be certified, and would you recommend this to other people?
Oh, well, how it feels to be certified is that I have this imaginary cape now where I'm certified, and I feel awesome. And it really validated, because these exams are created by operators within the water profession. They're created by operators for operators like us. And to know that I have this certification, it validates this knowledge that I was doing all along, by either word of mouth, because somebody told me, well, this is how you do it. But now I understand why. I know I can explain it better to persons. And when I go and deal with the customers, I can speak more confidently, sometimes using technical language, sometimes using jargon, but they feel confident knowing that they have someone in there that when they ask a question, they're not stuttering, they're not stammering, they're answering confidently and can back it up with information. So that is how it feels for me. And when it comes to doing the exam, yes, it's scary when you get the information, and sometimes it's not what you are currently doing in your day-to-day job. Like trying to grasp some of the concepts can be a little frustrating, or it takes some time, but I would say push through, try to see however you learn, if it's visual, if it is reading, if it's what must be done, try to do it. Because honestly, within the Caribbean, we are small islands. And I think that doing this exam and getting certified shows that you care about water in the region. It shows that you care about your profession. It shows that you care about the public health, because that's like key for me to know that, as I said, water quality, that everybody has to deal, like water is life. So once you do this certification, once you tackle the exam, you get that bold step to do so. It is important, because in our region, we need to take care of our water and we need to take care of our environment. So doing the exam gives you that confidence, and to know that you are part of this network that has this certification. And as I said, it was created by operators for operators like us. So, and with CAWASA and with Ignatius and Valerie and whoever tutor, and the fact that the YouTube videos are on the CAWASA's channel, CAWASA certification YouTube channel, that you can always go over anything that you are not sure of. And you can always send an email to Ignatius and he might send it on. He should. He's very good that way, that he will send it on to one of the tutors that might have said something that you want to get clarification on. And just go for it. It's scary, yes, I was very nervous, yes. However, at the end of the journey, it is amazing. As I said, I have this imaginary cape now that I whip out. Let's go, let's get it done.
Terrific, Nicole. And I think you should be very, very proud of yourself as being one of the first people to, not one of the first in the Caribbean, but going through the training that we've given. And that's why we're doing this, is to try and standardize the operations and to make people understand. And also, you did a webinar afterwards with Ignatius, and I found out something that, because I remember you saying that there was a lot of regulation questions on the exam, and I couldn't quite understand why there'd be so many. So I called ABC, and we found that CAWASA had an older exam. And so thanks to this webinar that Ignatius put on and your feedback, we now have updated to the latest exams that don't have any questions about regulations. So it's going to be actually much more easy to pass the exam than it was when you took it. So thank you for that as well. And there may be questions for you later on. We'll come back to you. So I'm going to move to the next thing, which dovetails into what Tom started to talk about the disaster SOPs, and then what Ignatius was talking about, regular SOPs. And in Canada, standard operating procedures are mandatory. If you don't have standard operating procedures, you are in a lot of trouble. So we decided that we would put together standard operating procedures that are available free of charge for anybody in the Caribbean, and then our team will take and customize them with you and help you. So I'm going to pass this over to Madeleine Bouchler. Madeleine, quite honestly, Operators Without Borders probably would not exist without the help that Madeleine Bouchler has given us. She was a lawyer to start with, and then she's worked in training in the water industry for many, many years, was a training manager with our local BC Water and Wastewater Association. She was the secretary of Operators Without Borders, is now the chair of the governance committee, but she's also chair of the initiative that we're doing in Haiti around standard operating procedures. And I'm going to ask her to talk to you a little bit about how we customize this for individual utilities. Madeleine?
Thank you so much, Valerie, for that kind introduction. And I wanted to say I'm honored to be here, to be asked to be involved in the 30th anniversary of CWWA's conference. That's tremendous, that kind of longitude and lifespan. I am just going to say first off that, of course, I'm talking about, as Valerie mentioned, the SOPs, documentation. So it'll be no surprise that I have some documentation to show you. I've got a few slides to provide some background, and I'm just going to hopefully bring those up for you. Okay, are you seeing my? Nope. Oh, yes, you are. Great. Super. So I'm just going to get that started. Okay, so today is all about what we can do in terms of capacity building and capacity strengthening. And actually, Ignatius gave me a perfect launch because he was talking about how there's a range of available, shall we say, SOPs amongst the group that we're speaking with today. So I'm going to move right into a fun thing that I kind of put together in terms of the spectrum. And some of you may very well be at the empty drawer syndrome, where really you haven't had a chance to develop SOPs. They're a new thing for the organization. And that was the situation for the group we're working with in Haiti. Really, there was nothing that existed. And at the other end of the spectrum, I have thrown up an image of many, many, many SOPs. And actually, we have a worker kind of walking on top of it. So, you know, it's great to say, oh my gosh, we have, 400 SOPs. But the question becomes then, are they accessible? Are they useful? So the next thing is the second, and this is artificial, but this is the second spectrum that I created. So how do you access those? And they might just be in a binder that's very useful, not too many, but accessible, and your staff is able to, as Ignatius said, when somebody disappears with all that knowledge, actually still has some of that in this form. And at the other end, I have seen personally, again, kind of the equivalent of the paper, where you've got, you know, folder on folder, and then it becomes, oh, where did they file this, you know, and oh, is this the latest version? So those are some of the ends of the spectrums that we can see, and that some of you may or may not be nodding with familiarity. So in the middle is probably where you want to land, but certainly what you need to think about generally when you're trying to undertake this enterprise is whatever you decide in your next steps, you need to take stock, because they start with where you're at. So just understanding what you have and what's available is where we will usually try and start our process in facilitating. And so the next question is, we need to firm up, what are we talking about with SOPs? And where do they fit in this larger picture? Because SOPs aren't everything that you have, likely. Some people call it a knowledge base, there's other terms. What we're looking at on the left side of the screen is, again, my sort of attempt to illustrate what you might have in your knowledge base or collection, basically, of what you need to know about your system and your staff people. So you'll see standard operating procedures at the top of that, just because that's our focus today. But you might have checklists. You might have O&M operation and maintenance manuals, policy guides, forms, videos even. I've seen where it's easier at this point for an organization to have videos and list those out. And way down at the bottom is what Ignatius was referring to when he was talking about your senior folks who have the content in their head. In knowledge management, we call that tacit knowledge. And what's really useful is to be able to pull that knowledge and put it into standard operating procedures and some of the other pieces. So now moving on to the left side, I'm going to describe our experience basically with working with the project that Valerie mentioned with Haiti. So I am working with a colleague, Aisha Nayang, who is the director of, assistant director with the Houston Public Works. And she works on the wastewater operations side. And she had started to work on and develop SOPs for her particular groups. And we both came together with the idea that it really needs to be useful and applicable to the particular organization or municipality. So she had a couple of examples, and then I went off to see what I could find with other organizations. And this is when the light bulb went off for me that we're not always talking about the same things when we talk about SOPs, standard operating procedures. So you'll see on the screen, and because it's intellectual property, I don't have them blown up fully for you, but just to, I think I can put my cursor on this one. So this one starts with general system information. It's very much focused on administration and who created the document at the start, and even the street where the system is. So before you get down to the actual, this is what I need to do, it's got a lot of content in there. The second one that I've pulled up as an example is on centrifuge process control. And basically, it's more of a, okay, we have a problem here. And what are the symptoms? What's the cause? And what's the corrective action? So it's very much in the mode of, we got to fix something here. And here's a list of things that are going to help you. And Marcel probably will be talking about that a bit later. Then another one I received, basically it's got very, as you can see, there's little text. Basically it's, you know, when was this created and a couple of other things. And then it leaps into visuals with labels and, you know, and arrows to make sure that the person is able to relate instead of just the text. That came from a co-op library, actually, that one of the groups are operators who may have less literacy, shall we say. And so this was a really helpful way of engaging them and making sure they understood the content. Then the other sample I have down here, and I'm sorry, my pictures of you important people are covering that at the moment. This is the start of what we had begun to develop, Aisha and I, with a operator from Haiti, so that we could make sure that whatever template we developed, he played a major role in and was knowing how we needed to make this accessible and understandable to other operators. So I'm just going to keep moving because I want to make sure that others have a chance to also speak to these things. And I'm happy to answer questions after. So basically, I'm going to explain this title because it's when, and to some extent it's, you know, how. But one of the things that is very strong for me coming from a knowledge management and change management background is we need to talk about sustainability and maintenance, even with our SOPs. You know, if you go back to that original slide I showed you with all the paper and all the, you know, in a pile, and also all of the folders that may sit and have nothing done with them, basically, we want to avoid it. So there is sustainability and maintenance, even with SOPs, although we don't tend to talk that way. So what you're seeing here on this slide is really drawing on the approach that we've taken with Haiti. So we've started with, okay, we need to have a template or two so that there's standard knowledge that is being conveyed. But it's really important that it's not just standard, that the content is aimed at the level that the staff are able to use it and that will engage them. So for example, putting the systems administration stuff at the start probably would mean in this case that that SOP, by the time it got to what's important to the people that we're working with, it would be back in the stack or in the pile. It would now be available, but whether they would use it is another question. So that was a big deal for us to start in terms of working with the lead from Haiti to make sure that that content and the format was also going to be useful and available. So on the side here with ways to engage the staff, basically we were working with the lead to assess the needs. And so for example, there's one laptop. So we're not going to be having people have, you know, devices, many devices going out into the field. Whereas some of you, that's not an issue. That would be something that would be extremely useful to do and to employ when you're looking at content and format. So that was the first thing, was to shape the template so that it would make sense for the particular circumstances. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning, is taking stock of where you are and what's going to be amenable or useful to your staff. The second thing is, it's great to have your template, but then you have, it's really important, we were working with the lead to start to think about, okay, we generated one, as it was, the generator. But then what else do we need in terms of that system? And so then looking at brainstorming topics and then doing a needs analysis, like what are the gaps? And working with the staff to identify it so that it becomes that part of their you know, memory and it's their system is the idea. And then just the last couple things that we need to consider when we're working with groups is the format easily to access on a daily basis? So in our case, we were the suggestion was, well, a piece of paper, take that out to the field with you. And so then we suggested, okay, but laminate it and also bring it back and put it in the binder so that you don't end up with more than one version is the idea. But these are the kinds of things, depending on, again, how many tools and how far along you are in terms of creating a system that makes sense for you and of course is feasible for you to do. And then the final thing is that whole business of don't end up with many folders and content that nobody is using or can't find is the big thing. So I'm going to move along here and talk about, just very briefly as a final piece, the idea that, again, I mentioned taking stock. Where are you in terms of what do you have? Is it working? You know, are you just building on to something that exists? Or is it you need to start from scratch, which is what we were doing, Aisha and I, with Haiti. So we had the empty drawer. And that's why we started with building the template with them and understanding literacy and numeracy, and also just what would be available for maintaining the record and making it accessible. So we started with basically with the Haitian lead group providing samples so that they would have an idea of what was possible. And then he in particular, Goodell, basically went with what we had sent and started to create a template that would be the first Haitian, which was really exciting, SOP template. We're not quite done with that yet, but then we're going to go on to do needs assessment in terms of those other pieces that I talked about. So that's what Aisha and I have been working on. She's primarily involved in the template, and I'm involved in, of course, as you can tell, a lot of the other bigger picture stuff. But as Valerie has mentioned, and Ignatius and Ton, we have other approaches that are possible as well. And that's starting with a wonderful library that you can then draw on and share. And that's where I'm going to pass this on to Marcel, because he's had a major role in that. Marcel? Oh, you need to.
Yep. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank.
A little bit about your background as well, because you just retired from managing a water utility.
Yes. So I was in the industry for over 28 years in both water and wastewater systems, as an operator, as a process compliance technician, and then into management. So what we've done in our industry is that, as everybody said earlier, that we do have SOPs, they're regulatory requirements. So we defined and we customized each SOP so that each facility, each region can identify what their issues were and how to be dealt with. On a yearly basis, we would take an SOP, we would go through it from the start to the end and identify any issues, you know, with the goods and the bads, and then we would dissect it and then we'd rewrite it. We have right now in our bank, with all the crew, the whole crew, we have over 200 SOPs ranging from water treatment, water distribution, wastewater treatment, wastewater collection, laboratories, you name it, and we've got them. So that's the bank that we have that we can customize for each utility. As I said, each utility, each region, they have their systems a little bit different, so they have to be customized. So that's what we have right now in our bank for SOPs. Valerie, do you want me to touch a little bit on my experience with Operator Without Borders?
Yes, and just to say that the SOPs, we've created over 200 SOPs, and Janine will talk a little bit later. She's donated all the SOPs for safety in the lab training, and they are going to all be available through CAWASA and probably CWWA, so that you can access them. And then our team, and Marcel is the chair of the SOP committee, he will be able to assign somebody to help you build them and customize them for your utility. But Marcel is also on our deployment committee, and he has been to the disasters in Dominica and also the disasters in the Grand Bahamas and the Bahamas after the hurricanes. And I want him to speak a little bit about what he did there and how we can assist utilities rebuild after the disasters. So yes, if you could talk about that for a moment. Thank you, Marcel.
Sure. Okay. So when the Hurricane Maria hit Dominica in 2017, Operate Without Borders sent 3 Canadians to help restore and repair the water and wastewater systems. 2 of the volunteers were tasked to help repair and restore the main sewage system that was destroyed, along with the pump stations and infrastructure. I was tasked with a crew from Dewasco, who traveled every day from Russo 2 hours north to repair and replace a damaged water intake pipe. It was something that we don't see here in Canada. That the water comes from the riverbed, and to see the damage that the hurricane did to the metal pipes and to the intake pipe, it was just something I've never seen before, and to witness that was something special. So what we did was the crew, Dewasco, we fused together approximately about 1,500 meters of, I believe it was 10-inch black poly pipe, fused it together, dragged it down the mountainside, dragged it into the riverbed, and attached it to the intake. Basically, we secured it to the riverbed, and it basically from there it took, and we had water flowing within 2 weeks. We had water flowing, and it was something to see that's something like that, how that works. And it was nice to see that it was flowing. And then I was fortunate enough to go to the Bahamas. So when Hurricane Dorian hit the Bahamas in 2019, Operator Without Borders again sent Jason and myself to help restore and repair the water system. The main difference between Dominica and the Bahamas was that flooding took place in the Bahamas, which was something to see. So the well fields were completely submerged with ocean water and all the salt. So it was something that was something to see. So we got to work with the Grand Bahama utilities and staff in Freeport. Many of the wells, again, I said, were in the well fields, were completely flooded and contaminated with salt, causing the water to be undrinkable. We flushed and tested many wells for salinity and TS and recorded the results and findings. We took it upon ourselves one day to clean and make some repairs to one of the well houses that was completely submerged by the flood. To see skids and piping on the rafters of the building, to see the pumps completely destroyed, was something that we again, here in Canada, we just don't see that. We may have ice storms, we may have power failures, but nothing like what you have in the Caribbean. And then we were tasked to help build a RO system in a trailer unit. In this trailer unit, we installed an intake, 4 RO systems, a discharge pipe, basically to fill up the water bladders, pressure gauges, etc. This trailer was built so that it could be transported from location to location whenever needed. Before leaving the island, we made notes and findings. We left them with the instructions for the next Operating Without Border team that followed. And I believe they were a crew from Ohio that came and assisted after Jason and I left. So that's basically my experience in both Dominica and the Bahamas.
So I think also in Dominica, the team, Jason especially, helped with the wastewater treatment plant, and Mrs. James will be able to perhaps talk a little bit more about their experience there. But our goal is to go in and help. And whether it's just going in and providing labor to work alongside the crews and dig ditches, or to do a full assessment, we're there at your bidding, not coming in and telling you what to do. What do you want us to do? We can bring certified, very, very experienced people that can help. So that's the mandate on that. So that leads very much into our next presentation, which is by Greg Solecki. Greg is one of Canada's leading disaster experts. He's worked in every disaster in Canada in the last 14 years and led the teams as an incident command trainer. He's certified up to, or can train up to level 400, some of the highest levels of incident command training. And he's written ISO standards. He's certified by FEMA, as well as in Canada. He's worked with the UN. He's worked with sedema in the Caribbean. So Greg, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how incident command systems can help, and what we're doing with Operators Without Borders in that respect?
Yeah, thanks, Val, and thanks to everybody for allowing me this opportunity to speak here and be here today. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Operators Without Borders and CWWA as well, and the organizers of the conference. Yeah, I'll carry on a little bit from the introduction. It might be important just to get a sense of where I kind of come from and why I do what I do. My work career really started off as a firefighter many years ago, and now I ended up after 2001, which would have been 9/11, asking and querying about disasters and critical infrastructure, why that happened and why that occurred. And I was voluntold by my fire chief at the time to go over to the water and wastewater department and provide some of my background and expertise for them in incident management. The reason for that is because so many things are connected, especially fire and water, and they felt that was something that I could bring to the water and wastewater departments. And throughout that time and throughout that period, it was a huge learning process for me as far as water and wastewater and the business went, but also in emergency management and business continuity. And I grew to basically, as Val stated, end up working on international standards on crisis management of water utilities, other emergency management and business continuity standards internationally. And that helped me create programs in emergency management, but more specifically, in the beginning, it was these programs that related to water and wastewater. So looking at security of facilities, water quality issues, learning about flood and floodplains and how to deal with those types of hazards that are identified in the industry. And throughout that time, as it went on a little bit more, I ended up being in, 4 of the largest disasters in Canadian history, and understanding about what that impact was on people when they're displaced from their communities, when they have to be evacuated, what happens to the infrastructure from the water and wastewater perspective, but how is that interconnected to the health sector, the road networks, emergency services. So that was a huge learning for me and a great experience. And it's these experiences now and the training that I have that I want to provide to Operators Without Borders and wherever I can. So as Ignatius said, I was able to provide some training in the incident command system, because when we look at managing disasters or managing major emergencies, there's a certain process in place there that we want to adhere to. It's something that is in place as far as not just a standard way of responding, but it provides some coordination to the chaos that ensues during and after an actual major emergency or disaster. So there are different incident management systems in the world, one of the most common now being the incident command system. And this is where we want to provide the training and the awareness so that when we're in the field working with some of the objectives that have to be attained, we can actually understand how it all comes together, where the priorities lie, where the prioritization of objectives are, how we can redistribute resources effectively. And being able to work with CWWA and all the other utilities, we've been able to provide that background on the incident command system, hopefully so each island is able to coordinate not just water and wastewater utilities, but other services that would be responding and working together with them. And even beyond, when we think about, okay, there's a utility on an island, what about utilities on other islands? What about other islands that are impacted as well? So coordinating that type of disaster response through the incident command system, understanding how we can share resources, not just for the response, but for the recovery as well. And Ignatius mentioned, something we do is disaster recovery here with OWB. And that really looks at the critical infrastructure and a lot of the different resources that are in place. So moving forward, we're looking at provide not just the educational component and the training component of the incident command system, but also incorporating further people that would be able to use the incident command system when there is a disaster, when there is recovery, and working with other critical infrastructure sectors, other NGOs that may be showing up, other levels of government, so that it is something that is responded to by the actual island itself, by the tree, by the utility, but we're all aligned in a more coordinated fashion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. And I have to say, Greg has been extraordinarily generous with his time. This is his business, and yet he has donated all of the level 100 training that Ignatius was talking about before at no charge at all to anybody. So he also provides at a significantly discounted rate anything over the level 200. We just trained a lot of the people in CAWASA at the level 200, and they'll be going on to level 300 and level 400. So we're very appreciative of the time that you give to this. And if anybody there is interested in bringing this into your own utility and making sure that your utility is set up, whether it's in looking at disaster plans or doing the training, we're happy to look at that for you. So I'm going to pass next to Mrs. James. Mrs. James is the water wastewater manager at Dawasco in Dominica. And she's going to talk about her experiences, because we have worked at Operators Without Borders quite a bit with Dawasco. Bernadette and I have known each other for many, many years. And the whole reason how Operators Without Borders actually came into being was because at the conference in Trinidad, where after the hurricane that hit Dominica, Bernadette and I gave a speech at the plenary, and I said to him, "What do you need?" And he said, "We need people to come and help us who know what they're doing." So that is where we started as Operators Without Borders, and it's all to do with Dawasco and Bernard, Mr. Etanoff. So I'd like you to talk, Mrs. James, a little, if you would, about the things that we've been doing with Dawasco, so that other utilities can understand that and what we can help them do. So both on the disaster that Marcel was talking about, and the lab training that Janine is going to be talking about after you. So over to you, Mrs. James.
Greetings, my colleagues. You said very well, the Operators Without Borders has been very there to us, because we have been working in collaboration with Operators Without Borders for a while now. And starting, we got a lot of assistance, especially immediately after Hurricane Maria hit Dominica. And we were able, with the assistance of the specialized team that came to Dominica, to Dawasco, we were able to partially restore our wastewater facility. And as well, we still got some technical assistance in reference to our water supplies network, the rehabilitation. A technical report was provided at the end of the participation of the cooperation, in which up to this point we still use it as a very resourceful documentation. Recently, well, water quality is of great importance for Dawasco, which has been affected, as I mentioned before, by several tropical storms and hurricanes. The most recently, Tropical Storm Erika and Maria. As such, since then, we always know that we wanted to be equipped with the best of the best to face any upcoming weather challenge. I will provide just very few words summary of this very informative latest laboratory and sampling training course, which took place over several months from February to approximate April, May, facilitated by Mrs. Valerie Jenkinson, that is the chair of Operators Without Borders, and the specialized staff from the regional municipality of Durham in Canada. These days, all activities are held online, so this training fitted right in. Although initially the training focused on wastewater, we got tremendous information about drinking water as time progressed. Virtual sessions were held on a wide range of subjects, including health and safety, standardization using the global harmonized system, hazard classes and categories, personal protective equipment, sampling, documentation, drink water and wastewater treatment and analysis. Some sessions were also supported by guest tutors for specific topics or video interviews and even guided tours by staff working in various treatment facilities. This was very useful for us because it was done in a very interactive and practical way. And we know how sometimes the trainings online can be a little bit, how they call, boring. Especially highlighted is that ongoing collaboration is possible at any time. And this has already benefited and strengthened our laboratory. Recommendations were made of software and links to online resources. The specialized facilitators were highly accommodated. And believe me, we discussed times and days that best suited all of us. And despite a huge COVID outbreak in Canada and some family emergencies, they work with us from their separate locations. Training was well coordinated and well received. DOASCO's laboratory staff, in which comprised of lab supervisors, water technicians, and water treatment officers, directly benefited from this training. And of course, our customers. We wish to extend a heartfelt appreciation. The staff enjoyed the open discussions, as well as opportunities to present the work of our own lab and to showcase a bit of our everyday life at our work here at DOASCO via a video session. All topics were covered and very enjoyable. Among the sessions that were most appreciated, those on sampling, which gave information about the nature of monitoring that should be done, whether it's regulatory or GET compliance or for internal quality control purpose. The raw water, treated water, as well as water in the distribution, all pose various challenges. Once again, on behalf of management of the DOASCO, we wish to express our thanks for the great collaboration in this training activity. And we are looking forward to continue our collaboration with the entity as we strive to improve our analytical competence. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mrs. James. It's wonderful. And we've been delighted to work with you. And I see Mr. Etanoff is actually in the audience today. So thank you, Bernard, because you are the reason that we exist. I think in DOASCO as well, you've also had many of your operators take the incident command system training and also take the certification training. So we've been collaborating with you on that as well through CAWASA. So the last speaker that we'll have, and then we'll have a few questions after that, but is Janine DeBoer.
Valerie, sorry to interrupt. I think Bernard has his hand up.
Okay, Bernard, do you want to? I can't see that.
Yes. Well, good morning, all.
Good morning.
I just thought I wanted to add my own appreciation to Operators Without Borders, and just to say that in addition to some of the things Mrs. James said, the assistance that we received, the assistance with the sanitation system and the water systems, they were not only just physical interventions, but they were also training opportunities. The experts who came took the opportunity to train the staff while they were doing those things themselves. And I wanted to mention also the participation that we had and the effective presentation in effective utility management that was delivered by Ms. Jenkinson herself was tremendous support. And I just wanted to highlight those things that we are very, very pleased with the assistance, and we will continue to collaborate with you in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikhail. That's very nice of you. This is not designed to be a pat on the back for Operators Without Borders. We just want the utilities to know what is available to you so that you can take advantage of all of this free stuff that we give. So going on to our last speaker, Janine de Boer from the region of Durham. And Janine has been wonderful. She's working in Argentina right now on a problem that they have with wastewater down there that she's helping them solve. And she was the one, along with Ian, who did the lab training and has also given about, 60 lab safety and lab technical SOPs. So Janine, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. It's very much appreciated. I think the benefit of going last is that I really don't have much more to say because everybody seems to have talked about what I was going to kind of talk about. But just to go over the lab training that we did, Ian, my colleague, some of you might have met him. He's been involved with Operators Without Borders for quite a while, and he got me involved in that as well. We did the training just as we were talking about before, virtually. It's a little more of a challenge, but it still works out fine. We got to have these tours of our facilities that we wouldn't have maybe been able to do had we not been doing it virtually. So we had support from all of our a whole bunch of our staff. We have support from our management to help. So that's kind of what we do, especially in Ontario in our compliance kind of roles. We don't create anything. If I need a procedure, if I need something, if I need some suggestions, we ask other people that are in similar roles. So this is kind of what we are trying to do for everybody in CWWA as well, is to there's no sense of rewriting things. We have all of this information in place already that we can share. And it's legal, what do they say? Legal, not copying, no, I forget the word, but that's what we do in Ontario. We share resources and for sure. And I really enjoyed meeting everyone, and Dominica, and doing the training with everyone was great as well. So my last thing I wanted to share, I'm just going to share my screen and show you one of the SOPs that we've been working on. People alluded to that already. I'm hoping you can see that. This is just an example of one of the SOPs we've been working on, how it's going to look. These are the things that we're going to be able to help you with as well, giving you directions. So you'll see the information available. This is what we need to fill in. And Madeline and everyone was talking about these SOPs. They have to be specified for each area, but we'll give you some directions on how to do that. So this is the kind of information. And I just wanted you to be able to see what it looked like and the kind of things that we've been working on in the background. And like Valerie mentioned, we have hundreds of SOPs that are available, and we're all available as well. If you need advice or help, we're always willing to help. And the questions, if there's any questions, like I said, we went through what we did with that lab training and the safety training. It's good information, and we have lots of that information as well. So Valerie, sorry, I think that's all I have. So I'll send it back to you.
Janine, for all of the help that you've given, because you've been putting a tremendous amount of time in. The training we did for DOWASCO was over, I think, about 10 weeks. So Ian and Janine gave up their time, and they involved other people in their utility, as she said. They went into the lab, demonstrated. So it was great training. It was the way training should be done. So thank you very much. I'm just going to see if I can just get this one thing up here. Can you see my screen? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I just wanted to put this up, and you can write this down. I'll leave it up for a minute. But $1.25 million Canadian. What's that? we recently put a grant together, a proposal for the Canadian Foreign Affairs. But they're not going to give it to us, I don't think, because it's a big grant that would help us to actually go and deliver training on site and have it all paid for. Everybody volunteers their time. We need to raise money to actually send people when we're able to after COVID, to actually give training in person, to do all the things that Greg has been talking about, going on to the level of 200, 300, 400. But we operate on a shoestring. We don't have a secretariat. We raise money by going to conferences and talking to people. Memberships of $50 for 3 years. If you want to be a member, go online. I put down our website and how to get hold of us. But when I was putting this grant together, the most money we've ever had in the bank is $20,000, which is right now because we haven't been sending people. Normally we've got about $3,000 or $4,000 in the bank. No paid staff, everybody volunteers. But I went through and I worked out our volunteer time. And I took a look at how many hours Janine would put in, how many hours Greg has done for training. And I looked at all of the work that we have done. In the last 3 years, under 3 years, we have delivered $1.25 million worth of volunteer hours to our utilities. And I have to say that a lot of that has been in the Caribbean because I've worked in the Caribbean for the last 10 or 12 years, a lot with CAWASA, and we are so grateful that they've been such a great partner. But we started in the Caribbean and we're now working our way at different places around the world. But that's a pretty impressive figure, I think. So I'm going to encourage you to get in touch with us if you like, but I see some questions coming in. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat. One of the questions, I'll give an initial answer, but it is on the certification training. And it said the ABC certification often isn't as relevant to some of the utilities in the Caribbean. What one has and how do we make it so? And I'm going to let Nicole and Ignatius join in, but I do have to say that the ABC training, when you train for ABC and get certified, you are certified anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the United States, and anywhere in the Caribbean from different utilities who are on the same ABC system. So you have to know certain knowledge in order to get that certification. But Ignatius, perhaps you could just chime in a little bit on that.
Yes, well, the ABC certification it's world-class certification. And of course, as I indicated, the tutorial services and the water operators can always get themselves into the program because, well, for all CAWASA member utilities, they would have to just liaise with their HR departments so that they can register with CAWASA to do the program. It's that easy. It's I tell many operators it's also a perk that is already paid for by their employers, because as they make their contributions to CAWASA, they don't have to pay for it directly for doing the exams from their pockets. All they have to put in is their time by studying. And once having completed you start from the bottom, which is the level 1 of any of the areas, whether it be water distribution, water treatment, wastewater treatment, waste collection, water laboratory, wastewater laboratory, the very small water system or small wastewater system. You must start at level 1 and progress to level 4. Level 4 is the ultimate. It's like someone who's, even some engineers who have been around may have challenges doing this one, but it depends on how much time you put into your work and studying, and following as many of the webinars and other continuing education programs, because that matters for you to remain registered as a certified operator. It means you have to show evidence of continuing education units. And so that is very important, because it has to be renewed every 2 years with CAWASA. And if you fail to do that, it means you have to start from zero again to take the same exam that you had already taken. So it means it encourages you to keep pace with changes in the industry and as the sector evolves. There's something that we have been speaking with the ABC on, and they are going to be launching that with us. It's offered in some other jurisdictions already, which is the professional operator. And we will be able to get some of our operators who have been around to participate in this program, and we will be launching that shortly. So you now have your PIN, which is again another international recognition. You've been recognized as a professional operator. And we also hope to add in our list of exams that is for wastewater inspectors and some of those inspection certification.
Super, thank you, Ignatius. And Nicole, would you like to comment? Because I think one of the things you said was that the trainers ask you about your systems and
yes, right. That is what I wanted to add to what Ignatius said, in that when you were in the classes, the question would have spoke about relevancy of ABC, but it is not the stuffy book reading that I could agree might not have, it's information, yes, but when you were in the classes, or when you are going through the information that is sent, or when you are looking over a video that they put up for you to get more information on a particular technique that you are not currently using within your country, you can always go back and forth and speak to them. And what I didn't like, and I'm very thankful for you, Valerie and Ignatius, to speaking to ABC about it, was when I had to learn about the regulations. I was scouring the EPA website, trying to understand those things, and that was not relevant to what I do on a daily basis. But now we no longer have to worry about that aspect of ABC certification. We now can just deal with the meat of the matter in terms of getting certified. So when I did the wastewater certification in, I don't remember the month. Was it in August? I think it was in August. When I did it in that month, there was no questions at all about regulations. It was just about wastewater treatment, and it was just about wastewater collection. There were a couple terms that I did not know about, but it just made me say to myself, I need to research what this term is, because this is a current term. This is something that is being said in the world, and I need to know what it means. So to me, it is very relevant to do this ABC, to be certified, and then, as Ignatius said, they are going to do the PO, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, it is relevant to become certified.
Thank you, Nicole. So Greg, I'm going to just ask you about the type of, why do we need to do this ICS training? What is the difference when somebody goes in under an ICS system and process than if you're not doing that?
It's really about the coordination and communication. I was just having this discussion with a university actually in London, England, and working with them. And there's different incident management systems throughout the world, and common to the UK is maybe people have even heard of the gold, silver, bronze. And there's different things involved and specific to all these different incident management systems. But what it really does is it helps that coordination and communication. How is information going to flow during a major emergency or disaster? How is the coordination going to work? And it's not just about people, the boots on the ground, we say, the folks that are responding to the actual event, to the feeder main or the water line that's gone, or the facility that has an issue. It's all of the other things that are attached to that. What is the funding involved? Like, how much is this going to cost now? How much is it going to cost when it's all over? what are the logistics available to help support that? What are some of the warehousing of the resources that we need or that we have that are going to support this response? Where are these resources most needed so that they're not just in one place? Perhaps we can share them. And then all of the other information and the planning that's involved that goes with that. It's about that whole coordination communication. I mean, some of the good examples we have, and it's not just waiting for a disaster and emergency to happen. It's validating the plans that you have in place. What are the hurricane plans you have? How do we validate that? Well, we do an exercise and we put people in their roles and responsibilities during that exercise so that they're able to experience what it's going to be like. But also it helps us create a coordinated response to that. And it helps validate the plans. So, I mean, we have so many examples, and one of the major floods I was at, we spent years providing plans for that and how we were going to evacuate people, how we were going to look at the interdependencies of the other critical infrastructure, what the governance looked like. And we learned from our exercises, but when the real event happened, different things occurred that we had never identified, we hadn't written a plan for. So the incident command system allows for that nuance of input of a new hazard or a new event or a new incident where there's a process and there's a methodology. And even though we can continue to provide that process, that helps us when we have something that occurs when we haven't even identified that in some of our planning or we haven't experienced it before. So allowing us to be trained in it, allowing us to experience it through an exercise provides a better response. It really saves on the impact of the response and the time and the resources that we put into it, which ultimately saves us money because we've reduced the time, we've reduced the response. And whether it's a utility or a larger entity like a country, we're saving money because we're more prepared and we have a system in place to deal with it.
And economically, the sooner you can get things back to normal, the better you are off economically. So there is a tremendous impetus to move into this. So one of the things with ICS training that we've been doing is working with utilities. For instance, Belize, we did a session just for the utility in Belize, where we went in and trained all of their people in level 100. So any of you who are interested in doing any of this type of training, just get a hold of us. We can either put more people through. We've already put over 200 people through in the Caribbean who are now certified at level 100. And we can put a lot of people into the level 100 course, but once it gets to level 200, Greg, we are a little confined on that. So I think it's 12 people, is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, the reason we're able to do this training as well, yes, I'm a FEMA certified instructor as well as an ICS Canada instructor. FEMA does not certify as much outside of the United States, but the Canadian curriculum, we are allowed to certify outside of Canada. And there are parameters on that, of course. The 100, which Ignatius talked about, is we can pretty much provide an online facilitated course for as many people that we can handle on a Zoom meeting. And then the 200 is restricted to maximum of 14, and that's because of the activities that we provide the attendees and the instructor to attendee ratio. So that's important. And after we do that, because that can be delivered online live by an instructor such as myself, after the 200, when we get into the 300 and 400 levels, we do have to have a physical classroom setting and a actual live setting where we're going through the motions. So we're actually providing instruction and we're facilitating people to go through the actual motions of their roles and responsibilities that would be required during a major emergency or disaster. So the 300 and 400 level have to be live and in person.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know that Cyprian Gibson is still in. He was in earlier, and I'm not sure I see him now, but We also did a level 100 for Cyprian, and it looks like we're setting up for do the level 200 for the utility in the Bahamas in November. So we're moving ahead. So we have 5 minutes left. I don't know if anybody else has any questions to go into. We'd be happy to if you just put them in the chat, but I'll just basically summarize up. We're here to help. I remember when I first started talking about Operators Without Borders and these 60 volunteers that we had, I think people were suspicious. You know, you mean these people are going to come and do this for nothing? What's the angle? What do you want? We want to help, and we don't want to take over. We're not there to take over. And Marcel, you might want to make a comment on this. When we go, we are part of your team. We do what you want. We bring the expertise, but we're there just to do what it is that you require. So if we're doing training, it's what you want. We have over 70 courses that are all accredited that are available free of charge. They're available for either a one-day course or the week-long or over a period of time certification training. But if you have any type of training, in Haiti, we're working with crews to bring water to Haiti, and we're working in conjunction with Rotary Club. We are doing the capacity building. Madeline talked about the SOPs that we're doing, and she's involved with the capacity building, documenting all of the training that we're doing. But one of our big experts, Carl Yates, gave a talk on district metered valves because they were running at 90% leakage. 90. I mean, even in the Caribbean standards, that's very, very high. So he was saying, if you want to get this under control, you need to have district metered areas. And so we put on a whole training course, and we are now in Haiti getting to the best practices and putting in the district metered areas into these areas. So we want to work with CAWASA. We are working very closely with them. We did one training program so far with CWWA. We would be delighted to partner with you more. I see Tammy Braithwaite, an old friend. Hi, Tammy, from the Canadian government. And we hope to have the Canadian government assist sometimes with sending us to places where we're needed. But again, we've done $1.25 million of volunteer work so far. Next time I report out, I'd like to be up at 3 million. So you have our email address. You can Google Operators Without Borders. You'll come to our website. And please just reach out and ask for help early. Try not to leave it right to the last minute. If you are in a disaster, contact us. We can come, we can help you do an assessment to put things back together right at the beginning. And then when you're ready, and there's equipment, there's accommodation, we can send teams. We had 5 teams go to the Bahamas after the Hurricane Dorian, and we're going to be sending more, but then COVID hit, we had to stop or pause. We trained 120 operators on safety techniques. Oh my God, is safety a problem in the Caribbean when we're dealing with operations? So confined space, leakages, all of those type of things, trenching and excavating. So we went to Belize, we trained all of their operators, all of their management and their safety committee on safety issues. We were going to be doing that in Antigua right before COVID hit, and we had to cancel our operator one day before he was flying out to Antigua. So we're hoping that in the new year, we will be back to being able to do that type of training in person again. So I will end up there, and please get in touch with us in any needs that you have. Work through CAWASA, work through CWWA. We have the training available, we have the instructors, and we are happy to help. And thank you again, congratulations to CWWA on their 30th anniversary. And we're hoping to be with you and partnering with you for the next 30 years. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for all our panelists.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.